Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. All right, we are welcoming Ben and Emily Kirkwald to the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
I am excited to hear your guys' story. So Ben and Emily are going to share their NFP story. I'm so excited to have them both here. I love being able to hear the stories from both sides, from both the husband and the wife. So can you guys just start with a little introduction about yourselves?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Emily. This is my husband, Ben.
Hi.
And we've been married almost 8 years. Celebrate our anniversary in September here.
Yay.
And we have 2 children. Henry is 6 and Amelia is almost 4.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. So tell me about when you first heard about NFP and fertility awareness.
That is an interesting question because I don't know the first time I heard about it. The first time I read the words NFP, natural family planning, was when Ben and I were considering joining the Catholic Church. So both Ben and I grew up Protestant, and in the year that we were engaged to be married, actually, we were looking into joining the Catholic Church. And part of that was I wanted to learn more about what the Catholic Church actually said in the catechism and not just what people told me Catholics believed. And so I started reading it. And so I came across these words, natural family planning, and it was kind of like, the church likes this. And I was like, okay. And that was it.
Never mentioned again.
Yeah.
No, and I think we just kind of took it to mean like, just don't have birth control and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just have all the babies.
Yep. That was our take.
Right. And we weren't really sure if we were on board with that, but we liked the other things that we heard. We ended up going through RCIA, which is the process for Catholics to join the Catholic Church as adults. But we didn't really learn NFP until a few years later when we were trying to get pregnant with our daughter. We had some difficulty getting pregnant with her, and we tried for a number of months, and thankfully we were able to get pregnant with her. But once we did, I just knew I couldn't put birth control in my body again. And I remembered hearing about this NFP thing. And so I was like, I'm going to figure out what this means. And so during that pregnancy, we ended up doing a lot of research and basically like asking around, what is NFP?
How was that experience for you? Like just asking around. I'm just curious about the responses that you got from that.
Yeah, it was super interesting. So I had gotten involved at this women's group at my church. And so I reached out to a woman who was on the women's group. And of course, I reached out to her over Facebook message. And I was like, hey, can you tell me more about natural family planning? And she was like, no, I can't, but I know somebody else who will. Here's her phone number. You can call her. Like, okay. I remember very vividly, I was like 7 months pregnant, and I was setting up the nursery. Like I was putting little stickers on the wall to decorate the nursery. And I called this woman who I had no idea who she was, but apparently she went to my church. And I was like, hi, I want to know about natural family planning. And she was amazing and so nice. And she told me all about it, that there are these methods and how it impacted her marriage and, you know, how it worked for her. And it was incredible, but it was a process just to get to that point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, thank goodness for that woman. And also that's awesome that she knew about multiple different methods. So, you know, even though your first introduction to NFP was like far later than it should have been, than we hope. I feel like at least you got a good introduction, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was definitely from a positive aspect.
Oh, that's great. So tell me about how using NFP has impacted your marriage.
You want to take this one, dear?
Sure. So we started off with the Creighton method, which has stickers and kind of filling in a chart every single day. And so when we started that process, I had to be involved with that. Which...
I told him he had to be the one who does the charting.
Which is weird. There's, just lots of things that we just don't know about women's bodies and everything. And so it was an interesting process to talk about what all the numbers and the colors and everything meant. And just kind of being involved with that is just kind of, we have to have a conversation about every month about what's going on every single day, and just kind of being on the same page is kind of forced that way, which is good and healthy. And so,
Yeah, I mean, definitely going from, because we have the perspective of a couple who was using birth control and then to using natural family planning, like, I think it's totally changed our marriage as far as that communication aspect. For me, I felt like when I was on birth control, I felt a lot of pressure. Like, I need to remember to take this pill every day. And it's like all on me. The family planning's on me.
Right.
Versus NFP, it's like we're both doing it together. We're both talking together. We're both, even though I'm paying attention to my body signs, we're still talking together about what that means and what that means for our plans for intimacy.
Definitely. And that's such a huge shift into, it really, it's a partnership. And truly, I think NFP helps us really understand the shared fertility that we have. In that, the reason that a baby comes is because both the man and the woman are fertile at a specific time, obviously when they have sex. And it's not just the woman who is fertile. Like, it's because the man is always fertile. And then we're tracking the woman's cyclical fertility. But that shared fertility and understanding that just helps us just really dive into that communication aspect more and dive into that relationship even deeper. So yeah, I love that. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your story a little bit, I'm just imagining 7-month pregnant Emily putting stickers up on the wall, talking to this woman. You know what? Tell me about your experience just learning NFP for the first time, like postpartum, and jumping in that kind of honestly pretty difficult period of time for fertility awareness charting.
Yeah. Well, I think we had the benefit that we didn't realize it would be a difficult time because we had never done it before.
Oh, sure.
So, it's just like, okay, we're just going to learn this. But yeah, I was impressed when I went to a NFP intro class. So Ben wasn't very interested in coming to the intro class. But he was on board. If I went to the class and then told him what we needed to do, he would participate. So that was good with me. So I went to this class and I was very much expecting like a priest to be teaching the class. Like, it was at a church. So I thought like, a religious person was going to be teaching the class, or like a very elderly woman is what I had in my mind. But, this like woman in her 30s was there talking about NFP, and she was just very easily talking about cervical mucus, intercourse, and just made it feel like, oh, this is just a very natural thing that your body does, and you can pay attention to this, and this is how you use it. And so it was very freeing, and it very much made me think, okay, yeah, we can do this. Yes, learning in postpartum though was a little bit difficult. Trying to figure out, yeah, exactly when are we fertile and not. And it got more complicated by um my period didn't come back after I had my daughter. I breastfed her for 6 months. It still didn't come back. By that time, I had been meeting with my NFP instructor a few times. We were feeling okay with what we were doing. And she was kind of like, well, just contact me when you get your period again. And then it'd been a year and I still hadn't had my period. And it was my natural family planning instructor that pointed out, looking at your chart, you're not really showing a lot of signs of fertility coming back and your period's not coming back. You might actually want to meet with a NFP trained physician. And as a pharmacist, that totally blew my mind that there were physicians who knew about natural family planning.
You're like, whoa, hold the front door, like shut the front door. I'm using the wrong phrase there.
Yes. So then being able to work with a physician who is trained in NFP and being able to figure out that, yes, I had something going on. I was diagnosed with hypothalamic amenorrhea, so I had low estrogen, and being able to work with her and work through that in a natural way was so empowering and just really set in motion where we're at now with our NFP practice.
Yeah. Well, tell me where are you at now? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that we feel very comfortable now.
Yes.
Part of it is that we dove into some of the different NFP methods. So yes, this woman that I talked to, she kind of mentioned, oh, there's different methods, but just sign up for a class. And so we ended up signing up for a Creighton class. And so we just started using Creighton and then just realized that maybe it wasn't the greatest fit for us. And so we started looking into other options and we found the Marquette method, which for me, I love data and I love just being able to do this urine test and getting this result and having that as our sign. And so, yeah, now we're in this place where we feel very comfortable. We chart electronically and we share our chart together. And so we both look at it, we know where we're at. And then I went on to I became an instructor in Marquette and I do natural family planning education now too.
Well, and you have a podcast.
Yes, I do.
Which there will be links to that in the show notes. Don't worry, everybody. If you're like, wait, another podcast? I can learn more about NFP? Right. Because I know you sit there anticipating Monday morning every single week. I don't know. Maybe you do. Okay. So tell me, what has been your favorite part about using NFP in your marriage?
I think just being, like we talked about, that communication part and just kind of being on the same page with that, when we're trying to have a kid or trying to avoid pregnancy, just being on the same page with what is or is not going to be happening that night, those kinds of things, and just kind of being able to have those conversations so that you can, feel that communication is, we're on the same page, I think is really the best thing.
Yeah, really ditto what he said. Being on the same page is the best part.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's so helpful. Like in my own marriage that my husband can just like pick up my chart and know, and then we can kind of like discuss from there. It's not like, oh, I have to tell you everything and then we can discuss, or also it's not the other side of like on birth control when it's just a moot point. Like there's not even a discussion about anything. And love it. So on the flip side, tell me about your least favorite part.
What's your least favorite part?
I don't know if it's a least favorite part, but I think the hardest part is just be like actually doing that and kind of keeping up with it. Like it's a part of our marriage now, and part of being married is you need to continually work on your marriage in all aspects. And I think that I wouldn't call it a least favorite part, but I would acknowledge that it is work that you are doing, and it's extra on top of everything else. But it is a part of working towards being closer to each other and being more connected to each other. And so it's important. But yeah, I think acknowledging that it is work.
To keep having those discussions and
Yeah.
to keep charting and to keep
Right.
communicating about it.
Yeah, I mean, NFP definitely is not the easy way out, but it is the holy way out.
Right. And the peace that I feel, I guess that maybe that's another favorite part, is the peace that I feel because we're using NFP in our marriage outweighs so much the turmoil I felt when we were using birth control. I felt so guilty, and I felt like, well, I know that the church doesn't approve of this, but I've also been told my whole life, and especially in pharmacy school, like hormonal contraceptive is the only way to avoid pregnancy. So I guess I just have to do that. But now that we are using NFP and feel confident in it and confident that we are making a choice that's in line with how God wants us to be in our marriage, like outweighs anything.
Absolutely. You bring up just, I feel like a really important PR mishap that we have in the church of just like, you hear, oh, Catholics aren't supposed to use birth control. And then that's the end of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing beyond that of like, look, there's these modern methods of NFP. They use fertility awareness to track your cycle, and then you discern with your spouse, right? Like that becomes a much longer sentence, but we seriously have this problem that we don't bring up NFP. Like, for example, in your RCIA class, that should have been talked about in your RCIA class. And it should be, more, I'm just on my soapbox again about how important it is to talk about NFP. Everybody go tell your friends.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you were even just working with a church that was like, oh yeah, we should probably require some NFP education before people get married.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably should, so that they can follow, the Catholic way of
at
marriage.
least an introduction to it so that they know what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you don't talk about it, then how are people supposed to know about it?
Exactly. Well, and I think that's the biggest problem, because our culture is so set on hormonal birth control, and that, yes, that's the only way. You're going to take the pill or you're going to get an IUD. And that's just what you're going to do. And there's no other way according to the culture. And so we have a really big job here in that most of the people who are growing up in the Catholic Church, their parents aren't using NFP. They don't know about it. And then they're getting married, and then they're hearing, okay, there's something, I'm not supposed to use birth control. I'm hearing this, but they're not hearing what to do instead. And so then there's just this guilt sitting on them because they think this is the only option, is using birth control. And that's a serious problem. We don't want people to be feeling guilty because they don't understand like what their available options are.
Anyway. Right. And think about the message that we're sending to others outside of the Catholic Church too, right? Like, we both grew up Christian in these other Protestant churches, and we both definitely heard somewhere or came along the assumption that Catholics don't like birth control. Oh, Catholics, they're against birth control. All those Catholics. But what if instead we heard, oh, Catholics have figured out this awesome way to know your body's natural fertility and keep track of that? Like,
wouldn't that be great if that's what was talked about?
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, it's It's such a problem that we have right now. And I mean, the main solution that I can see is that each and every one of us who knows about NFP, who uses NFP, talks about it more and shares stories like you guys just did, sharing your story. And it doesn't have to be in this kind of a format. You don't have to share your story on a podcast to share your story. You can share it with your friend over coffee. You can invite friends over to dinner and be like, hey, do you want to talk about sex? No, maybe not. I mean, depends on the type of friendships you have, but
right.
but we can share our stories, and we can witness within our churches. We can offer that to our pastors. We can go to our pastor and say, hey, my husband and I, we use NFP, and we'd like to share that story with the community because we'd like more people to know about natural family planning. And that's a fantastic thing that you can do.
Yeah, definitely.
Stepping off of my soapbox now.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. And so we really appreciate that you are allowing these conversations to happen and that you're sharing these conversations. And that's what we hope. I mean, that's why we wanted to come on here, is to be able to encourage others by sharing our story, and hoping that we would encourage others to do the same.
Yes, absolutely. And be that woman that 7-month-old pregnant Emily calls and asks about NFP. Like, be that woman for your church.
Totally.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast and sharing your story. Was there anything else you wanted to add in before we close out?
I don't think so. I feel like we hit all the highlights.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. As I mentioned, links to listen to Emily's podcast, Holy a Woman, will be in the show notes. And as always, if you are not following us on Instagram, be sure to follow us at Charting Toward Intimacy. And feel free to reach out if you have questions, comments, or topic ideas. Moving forward, the podcast is going to be releasing every other Monday. So expect episodes every other week. So we'll see you in a couple more weeks. Until next time.